why you come in, for instance, as a mediator. Do you have any time pressure? Are there interdependent relationships that you have? Are there goals that they need to achieve? So effective use of these blends of firmness by you as mediator with problem solving, leverage alternatives without eroding trust, trade or information advantages ethically. So the goal is durable, favorable outcomes achieved through credible influence. So what are the types of power? Power could come from coercive power, from reward power, from legitimate power, from expert power. So when you talk of coercive power, for instance, based on the ability to punish, give sanctions. What about reward power? Ability to provide incentives. Legitimate power is a flow of authority. Those of us who are managers, GEDs, and so on and so forth, you know what we mean. And then you have expert power. That's the knowledge, skills that you have. And the referent power is based on charisma and relationships. And that people want to listen to that person because he's just somebody they cannot but do without. So legitimate power flows from formal roles, incentives, sanctions, and so on and so forth, from reward and expert and referent. These are important so that you know that when you are on the table, you know the kind of power that you are bringing onto it. So let us therefore identify those sources of power. Positional authority, that is clear decision-making derived from positions in the office or negotiation. You, for instance, when you are in negotiation, you are holding that position in trust for the two parties. Though they own the process, but you are at least the manager at that particular time. These are leaders who can make binding decisions, make limited, maybe limited by rigid structure. For instance, you as a mediator on table, you are the manager of the process, but you cannot make the decision for the parties if the parties say they are not ready to move on. So you could have such structure in place that hinders that power that you have. We have social and legal power or legal capital power. These are your social networks, reputational leverage, your legal acumen that enables flexibility and creative problem solving in negotiations, your reputation, personal relationship that enables flexibility and creative problem solving in negotiations to take place. External power or internal authority, that is access to critical information, control over resources, or outside endorsement, can sway negotiations by introducing new perspectives. Internal authority, that's the expertise or the culturally recognized roles, the chiefs, the kings, and so on and so forth. Those are the power that come from specialized knowledge. You, for instance, as the mediator, you have a special skill, a special knowledge, or access to critical information. Those seen as experts or who control key data can shape outcomes and influence others. It strengthens trust and credibility. So the more knowledge you have in mediation, the more knowledge you have as a negotiator, the more assertive you become, the more confidence you have, and the more respect people have over you. When you also have the power to control economic resources, these are based on ability to allocate, withhold, or provide financial resources, assets, or opportunities. This includes control over resources, budgets, contracts, and so on and so forth. As a mediator, you may not have power to control budgets, but at least you have power within your immediate environment. So when you look at all this power as a mediator, the authority to exercise them ethically strengthens trust, while misuse can destabilize or deteriorate negotiation processes. And that is why this very topic is apt. So let's see the assessing of the balance of power between parties. First, you have the strengths. You need to identify the strengths, which is the unique asset of each and every one of the people on table, all right? And then you leverage on those points in the negotiation process. You have to look at the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities that they bring to the table. You have to look at the limitations and areas where party lacks influence or bargaining power, all right? You have to look at the opportunities. What are the opportunities, market trends? We'll talk about partner. that could shift the power balance favorably. You have to look at the threats. What are the risks, the dependencies, the competitive pressures that could undermine negotiation? Beyond this, balancing power involves analyzing both parties' strengths and weaknesses, and is very, very important. We need to understand that. That's why you, as a mediator, before you go on table, you need to have known all this and bring them to bear. So, how do we recognize power imbalances on table? There are early indicators, there are why it should matter, and there are strategic responses. Power imbalances occur when one party holds disappropriately more influence or resources, which can skew negotiation fairness and outcomes. What are the early indicators? Disparities in information access, decision authority, or emotional leverage signal that skewed the power of one party against the other. For instance, a power is coming to table, he has a senior advocate of Nigeria, the other man doesn't have a lawyer at all. So when you look at the ambient in the room and people notice him as a senior advocate without the other person, you will notice that the other person, or maybe the other party, feels a little bit low and believes that, oh, this senior advocate, I'm sure he's not going to have leverage on his power to coerce things on this table today. It is your duty, therefore, as a mediator, to be assertive in what you're doing. So why does it matter for you to do this? Early awareness enables fairer strategies and prevents outcomes distorted by unequal influence. So when you already know that this person is with a senior advocate of Nigeria, this one doesn't have a lawyer and he's just by himself, no other person. Already there is power influence in the room that can be utilized by one party against the other. But since you already know that early enough, it enables you to plot your strategies on how you are going to engage parties. So identify these imbalances early is very critical. Indicators include disparities in information access, decision-making authority, or even emotional leverage. Then what are the strategic responses? Research has shown, by what I went through during this period of putting this paper together, that awareness of such imbalance allows negotiation to strategic importance of having that balance and then strategizing effectively, such as seeking third-party mediation and strengthening coalition support. As a matter of fact, you could even do mediation with a party without the other one by caucusing with them before now to enable them understand the situation that you have in the room. So you need to therefore build coalitions and rebalance the information flow, set a transparent decision rules, even you as the negotiator. So what are the effective strategies for negotiating with integrity? First is interest-based negotiation technique. They call it interest-based bargaining in workplace. When you adopt this, it enables you to focus on needs, interests instead of fixed positions. But you must prepare and map out interests. You must identify the needs and priorities of parties. You must also explore with active listening. You need to ask open-ended questions, not the one that will restrict them to yes or no. That will enable you to uncover motivations and concerns. You need to allow the parties generate options jointly. Let them co-create the solutions. Let them co-create the alternatives before deciding on what they want to choose from. By that, you will help them to expand the value pie. And of course, we used to tell them that you are going to be fair. So agree on the fair criteria by using objective standards and documentation of clear commitment. The second one is building trust and rapport. Trust building is very essential for collaborative negotiations. One of the things you need to do is to communicate consistently, and you need to demonstrate reliability. You need to listen empathetically. You need to start with small agreements. As they are beginning to shift during your caucusing, you are noting them down. Then you aim for integrative outcomes. The third thing you need to do is to maintain transparency and accountability. What is transparency? One of it is openly sharing information, reducing misunderstanding, which will boost the legitimacy of the agreement. Once the parties know that you have been transparent, the parties have been transparent, you find out that that agreement that will come out of it ends their legitimacy and they will be ready to implement it. Whereas on the other side, accountability ensures parties uphold agreements and timeliness. They use agreements or the third-party monitoring. You could decide to do audit trails and periodic performance reviews to verify delivery and resolve issues quickly. While transparency is talking you about sharing information openly, accountability is ensuring that the parties themselves uphold the agreement they have signed and that they are going to do it according to the timelines. Some of the things you can use in holding them to account is the agreement they have signed. Or there could be a third party by the agreement to say you're going to monitor through this process. There could be audit trails. So without doing this, most of the time, some of these parties may redeem the agreements that they have signed. And then what are those your accountability tools, that you need to leverage on? You need to share decision criteria, disclose constraints and incentives, circulate meeting summaries, use clear scopes and milestones. It is not a hidden agenda. You must let them know where you are taking them to. Leveraging on information and expertise. So what is that? That is utilizing your knowledge, all right, for strategic advantage. The first thing you note that your expertise is a coin, is a currency you leverage on. It is a form of credibility. It enhances negotiators' credibility. Expertise leads counterparts to trust proposals and accept them more readily. The second thing it does for you is that it commands attention and credibility. When you are a subject matter expert, you receive focus and attention and deference from others, and they want to relate with you. They say, can we hear from so and so person? The third thing it does for you is that it helps you to gain preferential treatment. Demonstrated knowledge shifts concessions and options in the expert's favor. The fourth thing it does for you is that it reduces misinformation risk. Accurate guidance lowers misinformation and misinterpretation in negotiators. Are you an angel of sorts? Yes. Because for you to have all this and you know that it's working for you means that you must consistently upgrade yourself. So what are the things you can use? Excuse me. The first thing is you need to research the landscape. You need to gather market intelligence and the competitors, all right, move to frame the objectives for what you want to do. You need to map stakeholder interest, identify the priorities, the constraints, the decision criteria for each party. You need to formulate the leverage points, translate insights into value, hypotheses, and persuasive arguments. Number 4, you need to iterate during a negotiation, is that you need to test the assumptions, you need to update the intelligence, and then you need to adapt offers in real time. So how do you deal with influence and power imbalance? For the reasons within which we are here. First, we want to match influence versus fairness so that we see how it works. And I decided to pick this example of what they call anchoring bias. Anchoring bias in negotiation usually is a number that is dropped. And usually somebody says, I need 10 billion. Or I need 100 million. Or whatever that first number is. If you as the moderator or as the mediator or as the negotiator is unable to counter the influence right there on table, you're likely to mislead the entire house. What do I mean? That initial number that is dropped, that is called an anchor, strongly influences negotiation outcomes and perceptions. So even when that first offer is unreasonable, people tend to adjust to their expectations around it, according to Harvard. And without preparation or a clear sense of your own walkaway point by any of the parties, or even you mediator trying to see what you can do to help them move, an anchor can quietly become the foundation of a bad deal. So please let us note this. If the anchor bias is not well dealt with, it could determine the zone of possible agreement. And that may be a bad deal that they may not be able to do. As against fairness, all right, because we're balancing influence versus fairness. Influence is about shaping the outcomes. Fairness is about protecting the process. And that's why the mediator must know. So instead of using the anchoring bias, you need to do some level of caucusing to break that down, to let the other person know, or to let you understand how this is going to be. By that first number it has drawn, how is it going to pull them together? So transparency that you exhibit as a mediator is going to be the one that is going to help them to leverage, what they already have within the process. In agenda setting, we need to be careful that the person that has the power or the influence does not set the agenda. There must be an equal voice for everybody. All right? And then when somebody say, look, I am an expert in this field and I cannot lie about what I've done, and I can sincerely tell you, go to anywhere, you can do it. You say, okay, we do accept what you've done, sir. We appreciate your position. But is it possible for us to jointly, put up a small number of the people to do a joint fact finding? So that is the way you can diffuse that person that feels so high horse there. Then we need to avoid what they call information asymmetry. What is information asymmetry? What is the pitfalls? Asymmetry of information occurs when one party has more or better information than the other, potentially resulting in unfair advantage or distrust. Negotiation theory outlines that transparency and information sharing mechanisms can mitigate these pitfalls, fostering more balanced and ethical negotiations. Surveys indicate that parties disclose more willingly when mutual benefits are clear. So what are the consequences of asymmetry? In which case, the asymmetry of information can be neutralized by transparent emplacement of the process by the mediator. So what are the consequences of asymmetry? One party holds more or better information and skews negotiation toward that unfair advantage. Remember, I talked about anchoring bias concept. So this can happen, and then distrust will begin to happen. There are hidden risks and mismatched expectations, and they begin to lead to inefficiency, stalled deals, and fragile agreements that are costly to enforce. So for you as the mediator, the thing that can help you to neutralize this is, first, there is a joint working agreement together, there is transparency, and there is clear information sharing mechanism, which will help you to foster the balance and ethical negotiations. Research also shows that parties disclose more willingly when mutual benefits are evident. It improves trust, deal quality, and long-term collaboration. Let's look at the principles of fairness and ethics in what we are doing. 82% of negotiators report higher satisfaction when both distributive and procedural fairness are present. Please note that. Mediators and negotiators report higher satisfaction when both distributive and procedural fairness are required. So let me just expand on this a little bit so that we can get it. So when you talk about ethical frameworks, procedural fairness, and consideration, so what does it mean? Remember that integrity is the cornerstone of successful negotiation. Coercion and manipulation may win a moment, but they lose the future. Therefore, fairness in negotiation is broadly defined as equitable treatment, where parties perceive exchanges and outcomes to be just, impartial, and reasonable. All right. So that's what I just read. So we are going to also check applying ethics, ethics in practice, and what your core ethical framework should look like. I've already said that fairness in negotiation is broadly defined as equitable treatment, not equality, because there is a difference between equality and equitable treatment. All right. Psychological research, by what I came across, identified distributive fairness, that's equitable division of resources, and procedural fairness, how do you walk through the procedures? Is it fair to them? Is it transparent? What about the voices? Are they equally heard during the process? These are key components of fairness. Fair negotiations foster long-term collaboration and reduce conflict concurrence or recurrence. Ethical negotiation frameworks like I came across over time, like we preach in the ICMC, it emphasizes honesty, respect, and responsibility. Common models include unilateralism, maximizing collective good. All right? Deontological ethics, duty-based behavior, and virtual ethics, focusing on character. Okay? And applying these frameworks helps avoid manipulative tactics and promotes trust. Industry codes of conduct also help us to guide. That's why you have your code of conduct in the ICMC that guides our practice. And then you also have the ethical standards in negotiation across all the sectors that you might have. Manipulation and coercion undermine fairness and often lead negotiations to break down or yield to suboptimal agreements. Tactics like withholding information, deceptive offers, or threats violate ethical norms and can damage reputations. Practicing transparency as a mediator, as a negotiator, setting clear boundaries and focusing on mutual interests are proven countermeasures, all right, that will support ethical negotiation research. So how do you now apply this ethics in practice? You need to define acceptable tactics in advance and align it to industry codes. You need to be transparent about constraints. Let them know the constraints that you have. Let them also know that though there are anchors, but you're going to avoid them. You need to verify facts jointly, all right? You need to help them seek options that benefit all parties where possible and document agreements clearly to uphold accountability. And for your core ethical frameworks, unilateralism seeks outcomes that maximize collective good, all right? Deontological ethics centers on duties, rules, and honest conduct. So virtue ethics emphasizes character. Do you have character as a mediator? It talks about integrity. Do you have integrity? It talks about consistency. Are you consistent in your mannerisms, your character, your disposition, your accountability? And together, these models, help to discourage manipulation and support trust. So we're going to be dealing with about 5 power moves in ethics. It's unfortunate we lost some time, but I'll see what I can do so that we'll give time for some questions. Ethic power move number 1, you need to learn how to reframe. You need to let them know how to reframe what they need to say. For instance, we need 100% salary raise. But somebody who wants to diffuse tension will say, we need to address rising living costs. The other person will now listen. What are the rising living costs? How do you derive it? So by shifting your positions to interest and reduce your defensiveness or create shared problem solving, then you'll be able to have that ethical power movement. Ethical power movement number 2, strategic transparency. You need to share information that builds trust, avoid overexposure. Use timing intentionally. Transparency is not the same as vulnerability. Selective disclosure can also accelerate some level of trust. Ethical power number 4, data-driven legitimacy. Data reduces emotional volatility. Neutrals use data to anchor expectations. So it means that even before you commence mediation or negotiation, you will have done your homework. Either you're going to use objective standards, it could be market surveys, it could be the market trends or benchmarks, it could be regulations or law, it could be precedents. You must have been able to put all those facts together. To be able to move beyond that power, and we're looking at the next power, which is agenda architecture. Be fair in sequence issuing of building momentum. Start with easy wins. Save contentious issues for the later ones. And it is you, the mediator, that can help them do that. All right. Agenda order shapes psychology. For example, could we settle safety issues first before we go to wages? And then ethical power 5, control concessions. When you apply the psychology of reciprocity and concessions, not in a random manner, it signals goodwill. By using that sequencing, it helps to pair concessions with reciprocal tasks. So how do we resolve dispute with balanced influence? First is conflict identification. You need them to share their perspectives for you to be able to identify what their interests and their needs are. You need to put together a joint fact-finding team. All right? Stakeholders collaborate together. They build a shared understanding of what the facts are. Then you need to help, they need to, on their own, generate the options through brainstorming and creative sessions. They now develop multiple solutions and focus on mutual gains and innovative ideas. Okay? And then you have resolution and commitment. When the group evaluates their options together, they will now be able to select the most balanced solution and agree on implementation steps. So it is no longer the man who has the power, the man who has the influence that is dictating it, because you, the mediator, has been able to bring them together to know that they are equal on table. So collaborative approaches seek win-win resolutions by jointly identifying the problems and generating the options. Techniques such as brainstorming and joint fact-finding encourage balance. I have, for instance, when I was handling a case in the multi-doc orders in Benin, I assigned both lawyers, and I do it quite often. Can you please meet? And in the next 4 days or 5 days, so that we can talk about this again. And I found it very, very interesting. When you give them assigned tasks. But then the senior lawyer will say, oh, you know that I'm the senior, so he has to come to my chambers. We'll deal with that. By the time we finish, before you know it, they're already laughing. So data also indicates that these approaches reduce time to resolution and improve satisfaction compared to adversarial methods. So when you look at arbitration, I just pick mediation and arbitration. For instance, mediation let parties retain control. Arbitration transfers decision power to an arbitrator with a binding resolution. In their formality, mediation seeks to be informal, but flexible and open dialogue. Arbitration is more formal with structured court-like procedures. In costs, both reduce litigation costs. Mediation is often less expensive due to shorter duration and fewer procedural steps. And what are the outcomes? Mediation preserves relationship with voluntary agreements. Arbitration delivers clear, enforceable closure. Remember, we're talking about ADR with less room to compromise. 92% of equitable solutions led to long-term compliance and better relations. That's why I was telling you that there is difference between equality and equity. When you look at this picture on the left, you are talking of equality here because the base within which they are standing is equal. But you now find that somebody is disadvantaged. The little boy there cannot see, so he's looking in between. But when you talk of equity, equity is the fact that the man who is tall can see from there, so he doesn't need a platform. So you now give platform to the other people. One has 2 platforms, one has a small one. That is equity. And I hope we'll be able to now, clearly segregate the two and separate them. So equity is achieved by aligning negotiated outcomes with fairness, principles, and ensuring no party is disproportionately disadvantaged. Like this picture, this little guy that is here had 2 stools that he can now see what is happening on the other side. So it's not disadvantaged. But if you had used the first one that gave all of them equal platform, then he wouldn't be able to see. So tools such as objective criteria, mutual gains, focus, third-party review support equitable results. Statistical analysis of dispute resolution find equitable outcomes correlate strongly with long-term compliance and relationship preservation. So how do you develop personal negotiation power responsibly? By using your knowledge for strategic advantage. 1, your self-awareness and emotional intelligence enables negotiation to manage their emotions. Research links high emotional intelligence with high enhanced persuasion, conflict resolution, and relationship management. It enables you to manage your own emotions and help to regulate your reactions. If you can't regulate your reaction, you can't even regulate that of any other person. It helps you to maintain composure and choose responses intentionally. It enables you to read others and understand their feelings, to give, to act with empathy and active listening, all right? Because that is the thing that is going to open up their needs, their concerns, and motivations beneath their positions. It enables you to adapt to responses. High emotional intelligence will support persuasive framing, conflict de-escalation, and relationship building. It enables you to build skills by using things like mindfulness, reflective practice, and empathy, to strengthen emotional intelligence. What do you do to build your resilience, persuasion, and adaptability? By improving your communication, you now build your resilience. You need build your persuasion skills. Resilience is ability to bounce back after any travail or any disappointment. And indeed, on table, we do meet some setback. How do you bounce back without them knowing that you have been beaten? So it enables you to have clarity and framing, simple language, frame language around their shared goals. And after listening, you need to paraphrase to elicit understanding. Ask open-ended questions. Apply non-verbal cues, open posture, and align gestures with your message to reinforce credibility. It needs practice and practice. So, number one, assess your baseline capacity. First, identify the stress triggers and current coping patterns. The second one, train under pressure. Use controlled stress drills to build your recovery speed. 3, practice adaptive strategy by rehearsing scenario planning and flexible responses with friends. You can reflect and also iterate, review your outcomes, and then extract lessons and refine your habits. So in cultivating resilience allows negotiation to recover from setbacks. Adaptability enables adjusting strategies and changing circumstances. Both qualities are linked to sustained negotiation success. Training methods include stress management, scenario planning, and flexible thinking patterns. So how do you maximize social capital and emotional intelligence? Trust, networks, and goodwill underpin successful negotiations. Longitudinal studies link personal ties to better communication and concessions. That's the benefit of investment. Strong relationships foster cooperation and encourage ongoing deals. And then pair relationship building visuals with concise explanatory text. So how do you manage conflict and fostering trust? First, you need to assess the issues and the emotions so that the surface interests and emotions will help you to define the real problem. 2, set respectful ground rules. Agree on turn taking, tone, facts to guide dialogue. 3, co-create options to generate choices, trade-offs, and confirm clear steps. 4, build trust through consistency. Follow through, share context, and then communicate transparently. Understanding legal framework is also very important, whether it is local, regional, national status, regulations, cross-border international status, because you need to get familiar with all these status to be an effective mediator. And above all, how do we prevent disputes? Prevent disputes early through clear, unambiguous terms, set expectations, and maximize misunderstanding that escalates into conflicts. Even right on table. That's why you have your ground rules. You need to define remedies and contingencies. Well-defined obligations by the parties, remedies, and fallback plans enable them. If this thing fails, remember, I'm here to serve you. All right? So, reduce renegotiations and breaches. Data will show you comprehensively that clauses correlate with fewer negotiations. So, you must apply the clauses the way they come. So, the strategies for achieving win-win options. Positional power derived from role, economic power stemmed from control over resources, information power from possessing critical data, social power built on relationships. Negotiators who balance their position and information and economic, social, and legal powers, tend to create conditions that are more conducive to integrative agreements. And research finds that balanced power mitigates coercion and promotes creativity in deal making, increasing both parties' satisfaction. In collaborative problem-solving techniques, there used to be an initial discussion. You are going to set the tone, share the context to build trust. Remember, we talked about interest-based bargaining that will help you to, expand the value beyond fixed positions. Joint problem brainstorming that will help you generate possibilities, option generation, and then the final agreement. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues and your excellencies, empowering fair and ethical negotiation for license successes, balance the power with fairness, lead with ethics, engage in integrity-based strategies by aligning your tactics with values to reach outcomes to all parties that will endure. You need to apply clear principles to offer transparency and legitimacy. You need to strengthen emotional intelligence and resilience. You need to diversify power sources because you need information. You need to read wide. You need expertise. You need also, of course, economics and social models and social capital and legal insight. Apply power ethically by using influence to create options, not ultimatums or coercion. Prioritize relationships, aim for a win-win outcomes, and build trust and continuity. Embed principles to make agreements and resilient and repeatable. Distinguished colleagues, fairness is not automatic. It must be intentionally designed. Trust is built on fairness. Therefore, as practitioners, let us be deliberate in the application of fairness to all we do to promote peace and harmony wherever we find ourselves. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Ram, Godfather. Thank you so much for that great presentation on this webinar. So quickly, what we will do, we're already out of time, and we sincerely apologize for that. If there's any question or a comment, you can either use the raise hand feature or you put your comment in the chat box. We already have some comments here and some questions here. The first question is coming from Bamidele Odugbeson. How easy is it to calm an aggressive, recalcitrant, belligerent party? What are the strategies you suggest to handle such characters?
Thank you. The first thing is when emotion is rising because of time that we lost at the beginning. We just have about 3 minutes to attend to all this. I think the first thing we need to do is that when emotion is right, is for you to be able to even know when the emotion is rising. All right. 2, is there power imbalance? You need to understand that. And the way to neutralize it is go into caucus at that particular time, to caucus with the 2 groups, and then begin to hear from them. And I'm sure that by the time you are out of caucus, you should be able to resolve the issue.
Thank you. The next question. It is a comment from Idris Ibrahim. Said, thank you, sir. Can we get the slide, please?
That would depend on the man who is moderating. He's out of my control.
Of course, of course.
They will get it. I'm going to send it to you after the presentation.
Oh, great, great. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Yes. Any other question?
I'm trying to look through the
Since we have about 2 more minutes, if you know you have a question, you can raise up your hand. If we can't, because I know the gentleman there is having a lot, on his hand. So can we, if not?
If someone is asking that, how do we join ICMC? Okay. Let me go to the next slide. See my slide?
No, we're not seeing it. Okay. Questions?
Okay. How
to join the ICMT? I think that should be a straightforward question. If the person registered with his what's it called? With email or phone number, can you drop your phone number so that they can reach you? Then you can talk to that person offline. I think that would be better. So that if we still have 1 minute more, then we can talk about that.
To join ICMC, we currently have for the entry level, which is the associate member. We're having a training for those in Abuja scheduled for 22nd and 6th of February. It's tagged the Mediation Skills Accreditation and Certification course for those in Abuja who are interested in becoming a member of the institute. However, if you're not in Abuja or you are in other parts of Nigeria or outside the country, we also have virtual courses where all you need to participate is your mobile it's your device, your smart device, either your laptop or your smartphone. So if you're interested in any other of our course that is not in Abuja, maybe because of your location, you can send a mail to icmctrainings@gmail.com. Send an expression of interest mail to icmctrainings@gmail.com, and my colleague and I myself will be glad to respond to you. I'll put the email in the chat box.
Okay.
ICMC trainings.
Okay. Then just one quick one while you are doing that, Honorable Joshua. Somebody says, should all parties agree before an individual brings his SAN and SAN, for instance, into mediation? That way power imbalance can be checked. My answer is that as a mediator, you don't have that power to tell a party who to come with, who not to come with. It is for you to adopt and adapt all we have said this morning. And if you still need to reach Joshua on how to diffuse power on table. There are so many instances where SAN will come, and at the end of the day, they become friends of most of them, because of they are friends of the institute, for instance. I did a case some times ago, and it led one of them to sign up with the ICMC in Benin. And we also have lawyers who come in. By your conduct and the way you handle situation, they will say, please, can I join your institute? We have many of them across the nation. So all we'll do, I think it's Oyinkro, Your Excellency, that talked about that. It is your credibility, your integrity, and your performance on table that will matter. Because once you tell the other party, don't bring in a son, and that's the person that he has, or don't bring in a lawyer, he tells you, without my lawyer, sorry, I'm not going to appear. And then it goes, and mediation is done. I don't know whether that answers that question.
Thank you very much, Godfather, for that response. So before we go, for participants who are interested in getting the certificate of participation, this is optional. It's optional for those who may not be interested, but I encourage you to get it. It's certification of participation for this webinar. You're required to pay a token of just 5,000 naira to the institute. You can use the link on your screen. It's paystack.shop. I want to send it into the chat box. Paystack.shop, start pay, start web ICMC. So if you use that link, you can quickly make that payment. It's a token, so you get, and also after making this payment, you can get your 2 CPD units for our members who want to upgrade from one cadre to the other. And in addition to these, for our lawyers who are on this call, the points are MBA ICLA accredited. So I really encourage everybody to get the certification. Thank you. So before we go, for our members of the Institute who are here to renew their subscription for the year, we encourage you to also do that. Associate is 20,000, member is 30, while fellow is just 50,000 there. So we encourage you to renew your membership. There are a lot of membership benefits, and this is one of it: internship, life membership. And the life membership is for fellows of the Institute and is at 500,000 only. The implication of this is once you are a fellow of the Institute and you subscribe to become a life membership, you will no longer be required to pay the annual dues. No longer be required to pay the annual dues. Thirdly, there's discount for our CPD courses for our members who are up to date in the membership dues. There's welfare package, there's the VMS, which is the volunteer mediator scheme, and lastly, the monthly webinar, out of several other benefits we have for our members. Distinguished participants, thank you very much for joining. But before we go, please permit me to once again deeply appreciate the Godfather, Dr. Luz Brown Ogbefun, our wonderful past president, for the great presentation today. Thank you so much. We're grateful. We're so grateful. Once again, thank you to all our participants, and we look forward to once again warmly welcoming you for the next edition in February. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody. God bless you all.